So we moved in about 3.5 years ago, and after seeing so many houses, I just can't remember anymore. This is one of the places where actually the minute I walked in through the door, I kind of knew exactly like what the potential was. There was a kind of really narrow driveway down the side of the house. Back here where we're sitting hadn't been extended. There was potential to go up into the loft and to do some reconfiguration. And it just happened to be a really beautiful sunny day, and actually just when we walked in, despite all the work that I knew that needed to get done, it was one of those things where I was like, this is definitely the project that I would like our family to invest in, because obviously it does take the family on a whole big journey and embark on one of these projects. Of this size, definitely this is the biggest project we've ever done. We've always done kind of interior renovations, but we have done slight kind of configurations within, the house that we've lived in previously, but never anything on this kind of scale and size. So it was definitely a huge learning curve. And I think halfway through, I started to realize how big the project actually was, because you don't really realize when you first kind of embark on a project like this. My parents have always worked in property, so we're kind of used to growing up on a building site and seeing the kind of before and afters. So I think watching them do what they do as their job, I wasn't afraid of embarking on those kind of projects, and it was quite easy for me to see like the before and afters, because I could see them go in really dramatically transform kind of places. So I always thought it was quite exciting. So they were always there in the wings to kind of help me, but I think as well, once the project kind of started getting going, we had a really good structural engineer who really helped us and who was really invaluable throughout the whole project. Yeah, light was really important for us in the build, and you can kind of probably see that by the fact that we've got quite a few kind of roof lights and within the house, and large bifold doors, just because I'm quite obsessed with natural light. And when we first entered this house, it felt really, really dark, because the ground floor was kind of a fraction of the size. And it had really heavy curtains, and it was just really, really dark, just as well where it had been renovated. So it was really important to me that I knew that we could open it all up and get as much light in as possible. So I would say with the roof lights, I probably left it to one of the last things that I was starting to look at, because it was one of the last things towards the end of the build that we were going to look to install. And that's definitely one of the learnings that I had in the whole experience, whereas I really should have concentrated on it earlier on. I researched so many roof light companies, and I got numerous quotes, and because the build has already got to a certain point where they built the kind of size of the shape of the size of the window, I suddenly then started getting restricted as to who I could use. So then I had contacted a really good friend of mine who does a lot of renovations, and she recommended Roofmaker, and they were brilliant because obviously came in and were able to accommodate what we had already built for. And there was lots of technicalities that I also hadn't realised when we were first doing the build. And luckily, the Rooflight we were able to make it work. And thank goodness it ended up being a kind of like seamless job towards the end, but getting to that point was not. The most challenging part of the project was probably doing it through COVID, and having to homeschool children at the same time, because obviously you kind of want to concentrate mainly on the build. But aside from COVID and everything that came with that, in terms of challenges of finding suppliers and getting materials and over to be able to renovate, I think it was mainly just keeping on top of the budget throughout and just making sure that we didn't overspend. We're constantly reassessing like what we were spending money on that side of things. Then I think in terms of the actual build itself, it was all the technicalities that, we couldn't have known, just because that's not our background, and having a structural engineer that could really help us along the way. Because without that kind of technical advice, I think we would have been definitely quite stuck. So I think just that kind of technical expertise and just keeping on top of the finances are the two biggest learnings and the two of the biggest kind of challenges we had throughout. What definitely surprised us the most was actually how much bigger it felt on the ground floor when we opened everything up, because we knew when it was just a kind of the walls were up and you'd kind of extended it and what have you. Once the kitchen was in and the furniture was in, we were kind of like, just remember it's going to feel much, much smaller. But actually, once we got the kitchen in and the furniture, it still felt really kind of spacious for us, and that wasn't what we were expecting. And we never at all like fill in each other's space. There's enough for everybody to have like a room to themselves, just to have some from downtime if you need it, because you often do. Gosh, so much advice. I feel like that's a whole nother video. I think, as I said, finding the right builders, like definitely engaging with builders that you feel like you can trust and that you can work with. And I would say the kind of phase of designing and having the right kind of architect or structural engineer on your side really makes a huge difference, because I always had a really good idea of how I wanted to renovate the house when we moved in, but there was so much that I realised that I didn't know, and so many learnings in that kind of area. And also, I think from a budget perspective, just so many items that you have to spend money on that you just didn't know that you had to, and that you just don't really get to see and appreciate, and it's really boring stuff, but there's like so from a budgeting perspective, I think there was a lot there as well. And I think just the research side of things, as I said, windows, doors, all of that I should have done before we'd submitted any planning applications, and I thought that was something that could all come afterwards. So I would definitely do all of that before we submitted any planning applications again. Oh gosh, renovating this house has absolutely changed everything for our family, because we're a family of 5. I've got 3 little kids. And before we kind of had a fraction of the amount of space now downstairs, and for me, I've always wanted to have a great kind of living space and kitchen, which was the heart of the home, that our kids could have their friends round as much as they want, and nobody's kind of on top of each other. And I feel like we've really kind of achieved that now with the house. I mean, having 3 kids, they all want to have play dates at the same time. There's often 6 children in the house at any one time. So yeah, I think, having all this space and also having 2 sets of bifold doors that open up into the garden has just opened up the whole house, and it's just been amazing.